Hi, I'm Steve Rosales, and welcome to a new edition of Talk of the Town. Well, it's mid-February here in Belmont, MA, and we've had our first spring thaw. And you know what that means? Potholes. And Belmont certainly has its share of them. With me today is our town administrator, Tom Younger, to chat about Belmont roads and various other pertinent topics here in the town of Belmont that will surely pique your interest. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. I'm Steve Rosales, and this is Talk of the Town. With me today is Tom Younger, our town administrator. We're going to chat about some various issues here in the town of Belmont. Tom, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. I'm pleased to be here.
Thanks for coming on down and on a busy Tuesday morning to tape down here, and glad to have you with us.
Appreciate it.
Well, as I said in the little teaser opening, it's now February 19th. And yesterday was 61 degrees, and 2 days before that we had torrential rains and winds. Before that we had ice and snow. And I was driving around this weekend, it being a holiday yesterday, and I'll tell you, my bones are still aching from the rattling that my car took, as well as the driver and occupants on the Belmont roads. I know you're not the guy filling the holes, but you know, what is going on with the roads? I'm hearing all kinds of things about the roads, but they seem to be in a particularly poor status, or particularly poor state, at least with my memory.
Sure, Steve. Actually, I share your concerns. I just put 3 new tires on a car last week, so I'm very delicate where I'm driving myself.
Hold off on the alignment, because I'm sure you'll have to have that done again. But.
Right. In fact, driving, to the town hall today from where I live in Belmont, driving down Clark and trying to avoid some of the potholes there to get down to town hall. There's a couple of issues have come up because of that. Basically, the weather conditions have been so variable in the past month. You've had storm upon storm, and then the melting, and then the freezing, and then this weekend, because of the warm weather, the 60s, the potholes just get further created by this. Part of this is that we are putting our crews out to fill in the potholes, and we're trying to get them as soon as the weather conditions get better. We think we're doing some this past weekend, and some more creeped in. We'll be doing more this week. The problem is when sometimes you fill the potholes is because the weather conditions change. Those the old potholes are becoming the new potholes again. They're being created because of the changes in temperature and such, and the patches and holding. So that's what I think is part of the problem. Other part of the problem is a lot of these roads just need serious repair, and that's part of the issue with the discussion of the roads override for possibly in April, to go into a full-scale plan to reconstruct and renovate roads on a full-scale project. Okay,
and so potholes are sort of an ongoing maintenance type of an issue, but
yes.
But the larger question, the more overriding, no pun intended, well, maybe pun intended, issue is the state of the actual roads themselves, as opposed to the seasonal defects that always develop, whether it's a new road or an old road.
Yeah. Example very similar to that. Let's say you have a driveway that hasn't been maintained for a number of years, and it starts cracking. You fill the cracks a few more years, the cracks develop again, you keep filling them, and eventually it means the driveway has to be renovated, reconstructed. And this is, I think, what's happening with a lot of our roads here, is the roads under our budget have been tried to maintain, but they have to be reconstructed and renovated to hold the patches. I mean, if you keep patching and patching, eventually it won't hold the road.
Well, but it seems to be it's pandemic, I guess. Right. I don't know if that's the right word, but well, maybe it is. It seems to be town-wide.
It is.
It's not sort of confined to one area.
No.
I was driving around. It was a nice day, 60 degrees. We went around with my bride, and we did our errands.
Mm-hmm.
And it took us up to the Hillcrest area, Stony Brook, Evergreen, Woodfall, Crestview Road area, and man, even the roads up there that don't have the traffic of, say, a School Street or a Concord Ave or a Trapella Road, I'm telling you, those are those are very difficult to navigate. And it's not the occasional pothole, it seems to just be structural, just degeneration there.
Belmont has 80 miles of roads, and a number of them are private ways. And the private ways, particularly I believe there's a number of them up in the hill area. Under state law, the town cannot reconstruct the roads. We do patch them for public safety reasons, but as far as full road reconstruction on a private way, that is generally the responsibility of the owners on the street, the homeowners.
So, I don't know, not to pick on the street, but Stony Brook or Spring Valley Road, most of those houses in what I call is the Hillcrest area.
Yes.
Those are private ways?
Yeah, generally, those are private ways from my understanding.
Okay, so the town will plow them of snow, I
Plow,
assume,
clear, yes.
and clear them off, but and patch the occasional pothole, but the actual reconstruction of some of those roads, the town isn't going to do?
No, state law prevents us from repaving or reconstructing. In fact, just before, because I moved back in Belmont about 11 years ago, my wife and I lived in Waltham for a couple of years, owned a house up on Beaver Brook Road, right behind Beaver Brook Reservation off of Trabella Road. Actually, I could hit a 9-iron from my house and hit Beaver Brook, so I was actually closer to Belmont than Waltham. And we lived on a private way. And Waltham, provided the trash services, the snow plowing, but would not provide the maintenance of the structure of the road. And actually, after we moved back to Belmont, they did have a betterment where the private homeowners had to pick up the costs on that road for it to be reconstructed.
And that's how that's done. I think.
Yes.
I think when I was on the board, I can't believe it's been 10 years, coming on to 10 years since I stepped off the board, or was removed, or I left the board. I'll
The
say
democratic process.
And but that actually came up way back then, 10 years ago, and where there were some people wanting to turn them, perhaps make them into public streets, public ways, and they took the road right of way and discovered that some of the people's front yards that they've been maintaining with lawn and sprinkler systems are actually in the road right of way, and that didn't go over. The whole effort back then sort of, dwindled out once sort of people figured out what was actually going to happen.
Right.
But having driven up there, and I don't live up there, but we were looking to see what's poking around up there, and it looks pretty difficult.
It is.
But, I don't want this to be a complaint. I have to say that the Public Works Department, Peter Castanino, Mike Santoro, and their fine staff, they do the best they can with dwindling resources and a dwindling number of employees. So this doesn't fall on them, does it?
No, not at all.
I want to make sure that, at least for me, I'm not. They do a fine job based on what they're given.
No, Peter responds very well. Any calls that come in, we direct them to the Department of Public Works. They generally immediately go out there and patch the hole, and I see them out there daily.
Okay. Now, the bigger question. I mean, there's places like schools, there's roads I won't drive. You mentioned before the show, Clark Street,
Right.
I don't think is one. Your place of drivable areas. School Street, somewhere between Washington and Fairview, is kind of a tough place. Mill Street's a tough place.
Mill's tough.
These are major roads. What's in the budget now to fix these roads?
Well, currently, as you'd earlier stated, there is an annual appropriation of $1 million. Now it's just a little over $1 million. I think it's $1,025,000 for annual road maintenance. When you also include what the state provides to us, which is approximately about $400,000 to $500,000 a year for road maintenance, that's known as the Chapter 90 funds. There's approximately about $1.5 million in the budget for road maintenance. What the selectmen are looking at, which they tried about 2 years ago, was to declare a roads override, where the money would be into a road stabilization fund, which could only be utilized for road maintenance and road repair. They're looking at this point for a $2.5 million possible override in April for the roads.
In a couple months. This coming April.
This coming April.
All right, let me ask you a question. That $2.5 million, what happens to I'll ask it this way. What happens to the existing line item? Let's say you go for a road override and the town votes $2.5 million. And the money gets put into a pot, and I understand that sort of in the not to quote Al Gore, but the lockbox, the road lockbox.
Perfect example.
Okay? And we've been carrying $1 million, $1.25 million for the roads in the operating budget. What happens to that?
Okay. That continues to be utilized for the road projects, plus also the state money. So actually, your project for roads would be almost $400,000 a year.
Okay.
$4 million a year, not 400,000.
Because you know, I look at my tax bill, and I live in my little 3-bedroom center entrance Winbrook home, and it got pretty big. The last bill I opened was a big number, very big number. Right. Okay, just so that it remains to be intellectually honest, that the contemplated override, just because I don't know, of $2.5 million is not meant to replace the existing line item that exists in the budget. In other words, it's not going to. In other words, if you put $1 million in for years for maintenance, and that they pass the override, that $1 million is now not going to be earmarked for operational things. It's not going to be a backwards way of getting an operational override, or is it?
No, I think that's what may have caused some of the difficulty about 2 years ago when they had put the override on before, because there was always the $1 million in the budget for roads, and I believe that $1 million was going to be moved toward operating, and then I believe it was maybe $3 million or $3.5 million for roads as a separate roads override. And I think there was some confusion among some of the voters about where the money was being shifted.
Well, that's what I had a philosophical. I didn't think it was intellectually honest. Right. That if you're gonna go for an operational override, which is your right, and the town can go up and down, but call it that. Don't vote for something else merely to be able to remove that capital expense, that maintenance expense from the regular budget and apply it elsewhere and package it in some other way. So, well, I'm glad to hear that, because, you know, I think that should be probably communicated in a very strong and loud way. And the selectmen, not that I'm calling on it, but it would be, I think, beneficial if all the selectmen and the warrant committee and all the powers that be got up and gave an assurance that at least for the foreseeable number of years going forward, that the $1 million that's already being carried in the budget is going to remain.
Yeah. And please be aware is that the $1 million will stay in the budget, but the $1 million will not carry us through for the next 20 years or so, because the road work that we're looking at on the override, if there is one, is basically a 20-year project to reclaim and renovate, reconstruct our roads in Belmont, including the main streets and some of the smaller streets also. The $1 million will not get you there over the 20-year period.
Well, let me roll into, maybe this is unfair, but because we didn't really chat about this at the beginning, but it gets, you know, once we do a road, then you see the gas company and the cable company and the phone company and all these other companies and the water company come and cut the roads all up. And they all say they're going to patch them, return them, but they don't. The patches, they stink. I mean, I'm sorry, that's not very eloquent of me, but they're really not very good. Other towns, I have some clients that are in the excavation business, and if they go to Boston, for instance, or Newton, for instance, and they open a sidewalk or a public street to do whatever, sewer connection or whatever, they have to put up a hunk of money or a bond that the town keeps. And they fix the hole, and if the hole is done right, they get their money back. And if the hole buckles or dips or is not done well because it all settles, they use the money that they put up to fix it. Is that a custom that is not in place? I don't understand it to have been the custom when I was on the board. But what can we do with that? Because with, you know, I think Prospect Street a couple of years, brand new street, the next thing you see, it's all sliced up.
Okay. Sure. That's not an unfair question, Steve. I sit in front of the boards for the last 25 years, so I get questions all the time off the top. Generally what happens in those cases is, let's go back to the roads override, if you're talking about reconstructing the roads. The roads are also being determined by the ones who need the water replacement, the gas replacement. So those are the roads that we'll be looking at. So we're not planning on redoing the road, then redigging it up. So that's the first thing. We review the road to see which roads need the utility replacements. Secondly, when we do replace the roads, we do contact utility departments saying that we're digging up let's say, Washington Street. Do you need any gas repairs, or does the water department have to replace pipes in those areas? They get notified, and if they have no interest in it, we do it. And there's generally, I believe, a 5-year moratorium on replacements or cuts into the road, except in the case of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a gas leak, a major gas leak, they have to cut the road and so forth. What we do have in the budget, and I don't know if it'll stay or not, it was supported by myself and the Board of Selectmen for the upcoming year, is what you'd call a part-time service maintenance individual in the Public Works Department, whose job would be basically to oversee all patching and slicing type programs to make sure that the utilities would be doing a proper paving job on the replacement. We are also putting together a new replacement program for patching that describes what needs to be done, what's going to be responsible, and what's the utilities' responsibilities. We are taking that very seriously because we do agree with you that that has to be taken care of.
Because the utilities, they come, who's gonna say you can't put gas service and phone? I mean, it's the way it goes, what can I say? So let them open the street, but, they come in, whoever it is, the contractor comes in, does the thing, and, you're not gonna get them back. Well, maybe you can, but I would suggest it'd be extremely difficult.
I mean, you generally don't see this in Belmont, but in other towns you do, particularly in newer developments. You don't really see that here as much. But they try to put all the utilities underground, the phone, the cable. But that also becomes an issue in other communities, but not as much here.
But you won't take the bond or the cash bond up front like some cities and towns do.
I'll have to review that with Peter. I don't know if we do or not, sorry.
Okay, well, again. All right. Moving off scintillating road topics, we have other things. Now, we have some new restaurants that seem to be going up, and I know we have town meeting coming up, and you told me that a possible article at the warrant is something dealing with liquor licenses. Can
Sure.
you tell us about, and again, I don't think the warrant has been finalized
No.
yet, but is it fair to talk about what's being
Sure.
sort of thought about?
Sure. The board is very supportive of expanding the number of restaurant licenses, not the liquor stores,
Not
but
the package
Not the
stores.
package stores, right. Because we still have one available in Belmont for beer and wine license. Restaurants. Our beer and wine licenses, which we have 8 of, have all been taken for the past few years as no availabilities. And we have 3 restaurant licenses, 2 of which have been issued. One is at Savino's Grill in Cushing Square, is the only operating one at this point. And the other one is for the proposed restaurant down at the old fire station in Belmont Center, has that. And they're optimistic that construction on that will begin this spring for that. And there's one available less. The issue is that the restaurant licenses have a minimum seating requirement of 130. That's for the all alcohol licenses. And as you well know, Steve, it's very difficult in Belmont to find a space that can fit 130 seats. Savino's has exactly 130 seats. And also the new restaurant in Belmont Center has 130. But those are really smaller areas, tighter areas. And they need the liquor licenses basically to have their businesses come to Belmont. And I think that's part of the problem with the third license being available, is trying to find a space that can fit 130 seats. So the board is looking for expanding those licenses, plus also reducing the seating. The Alcohol Licensing Committee, of which I was a member, I think about 10 years ago before he started this job here, is looking at reducing the seating requirements for both the restaurant and the beer and wine. The beer and wine requirement's 39 seats. And there is, I know, at least 2 restaurants that just met those requirements before they got their licenses. And they're looking to expand those because there were at least 3 other restaurants in Belmont, all varying in size between 25 and I believe 45 seats, who are looking for a beer and wine license, but none are available. So they would go through the same process that the other ones did. Town meeting would have approval. The legislature would have to approve it, and then it would come back to the voters probably at the next April town election.
Just to increase the number of
And
already
the seating,
approved
and to reduce the seating.
And reduce the seating. That has to go through town meeting and
Yes,
just to reduce the seating.
because when the town voted on this, on both the restaurant and the alcohol and the beer and wine, you placed a seating requirement
remember
on
that.
the vote. So you'd
I
have to.
remember that. It was kind of an odd number, but
I was on the
I don't
committee.
know how it actually got, to me, 40. It's not a round
Actually-
number. 39 doesn't seem. It's
Actually-
kind of a weird number.
Steve, I can give you the answer because I was on the committee. As you being a former selectman, compromises everything.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, somebody split the baby somewhere between one number and another. Okay.
There was a number of us, including myself, who were looking at lower numbers, and there was other members that were looking at higher numbers.
Okay. Well, there you go. It's a scoop. It's a scoop. I figured that's sort of how that came about, but thanks for confirming that. Well, we'll see where that goes. That hasn't been formulated yet. That's sort of in the contemplated stage, or it's
No, the selectmen are very supportive of it. They would like to see something.
Who's going to be the proponent? Who's going to formulate that warrant article, or is it going to be a selectmen's article?
It will be a selectmen's article if it goes on.
Oh, okay.
The licensing committee is giving recommendations on seating and numbers, but the selectmen about 2 or 3 weeks ago were very supportive of it. In fact, they had 3 restaurants, Theo's on Trapella Road, Osaka on Concord Ave, and Cafe Fiorello on Belmont Street.
Okay.
We're all interested in acquiring licenses.
Okay. Well, looking at the Arlington experience, I don't know how big those restaurants are, but they have their own restaurant row, which is probably within the last 10 years they developed. They had a similar situation as us. It seems to be pretty vibrant over there. So
we haven't received any complaints.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Any complaints on any of these things?
None whatsoever. We have not received any violations. In fact, I've worked in 4 communities, and all 4 had liquor licenses, and I can say the first time in my life that I have not had a violation in any. This is the only community I've not had violations ever.
Huh.
And
well,
it's worked out.
Let's hope that we remain that way. That must make it easier for the police department and some of the public safety people.
They're very diligent on that, and I trust the police department and the work they're doing on that. But we've been fine. And in fact, the two package stores have opened. Actually, one has a license for the Beer and Wine in Belmont Center, which hasn't opened yet. And the other one, the Spirited Gourmet in Cushing Square, has done very well, particularly over the holiday season. And both them and Savino's Grill, which have liquor license, have been a boon to that area.
Well, let's talk about that area. I have my law office up in that area, and there's a bunch of vacant buildings and a hole in the ground. So I don't know if this is premature or not, but when I think of big restaurants, I think of the old CVS building up there that's been abandoned for I don't know how many years. I mean, that's a big building. Is it the best use? I don't know. I'm just looking at a size of a building that could prospectively deal with that type of number. Then of course there's the old Tops Cleaners building, which has now just been a hole in the ground for I don't know, quite a while. Can you shed any news?
Sure.
Is anything happening on that front?
Sure. It's funny you mentioned that. I was at a fundraiser about 3 weeks ago for an orphanage, and it was a former old-time Belmont resident who had moved out of town a number of years ago. And I was talking to him and mentioning the Cushing Square area and the changes happening up there. And I had mentioned the overlay district, which you're talking about now, which stretching from CVS building down towards Starbucks. And I had mentioned to him and said, oh, well, it starts up at the CVS building. And he had this perplexed look on his face. And he goes, you mean the old A&P building? And
That's
like,
true.
And it's like, first I thought about that, and I said, okay, you're right. And I was going to try to update it. So yeah, it goes down by Joytown and the SS Pierce building too.
Dittos, Joytown.
Dittos, right.
Yes, you're at the Friendlies.
And Friendlies,
Can't even
right.
call it Starbucks. There
Right.
you go.
But
you're dating yourself like I am.
we're in the
but,
same page there, Steve. But they are coming. Chris Starr, who is the developer who came before town meeting last year for the overlay district, will be coming before the Board of Selectmen this Monday evening, the 25th, to present his proposal on what he is planning on doing in that area. We're all excited. I haven't seen a proposal yet, but I think if it's looking like what he had proposed in the overlay district, that we'll be having some vitality and some activity up in Cushing Square like we did when you and I were kids, and we'd go up there back when we were in junior high.
There you go. Bring back the vanilla Cokes and the Fribbles. And
At our age, I don't know if we should be drinking Fribbles
no,
anymore.
that's what I'm into Diet Coke, and I watch my kids drink the Fribbles now. But in any event, so well, there's more than to come. So we're on the cusp of learning whatever it might,
Right.
whatever that may. Is he also in control of Mr. Starr's company, in control of the old A&P building, formerly the CVS, or is it coming as a package to your knowledge, or is this?
We'll know
we not
Monday
know?
night, but the whole overlay district included
Yeah.
from the CVS all the way down. And I believe the vacancies that you're talking about, at least in that particular area, will all be taken care of in this whole development area.
Okay, so I guess we'll stay tuned and see what happens, and when his plans come, I guess it goes through some type of planning board or some
Yes.
type of a public process for whatever the development is, I assume.
Yeah, because that's the area where it needs to work. There's been some nice businesses going up over on the other side. You know, you get Spirited Gourmet, you have On the Common Kitchens, Sudbury Kitchens. So there's some nice business taking over some vacancies there in Savino's Grill. So I appreciate everything they're doing.
Okay, well, we'll stay tuned on that. Hey, on a little bit more of I don't know if it's the alarming side, but something that doesn't necessarily happen often. We had a alleged abduction, or at least a report of
Yes.
of a school pupil, possibly being abducted or being approached by an individual or a suspect. I don't know where it is on the investigation. I'm not with respect to that, but you know, that was a little bit, I guess, alarming. That raised my eyebrows when I read that, and I think it was the chief of police who said, you know, people don't think it happens in towns like ours, but it does. And I suppose that's a common cry on a lot of the stuff. But you tell me the town has sort of, it's almost foreshadowing, had thought about something like this in the wake of, you know, either Virginia Tech or Columbine. I don't want to be so overly dramatic, but there's something in the works in the budget?
Sure.
Tell me about that. Tell the people about that.
Okay. Well, this wasn't just for the budget, and it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to this incident. This was actually worked on last year when Chief McLaughlin came onto the police department. Is we were looking toward a federal grant to pay for a notification system that would notify all residents in case of emergencies, not necessarily just in an alleged abduction issue here, but everything from, let's say there's a water break somewhere or road closures for an emergency, and that they would be notified.
Townwide notification?
Townwide notification.
Okay.
We did apply for the federal grants, did not receive it. We were competing nationally against various other states and cities and towns. We do have in the budget for this year funding for a notification plan. We are reviewing, there's at least 3 major ones nationally, and they range from price from $25,000 to $45,000 for such. And we're reviewing them the first week of March to come in. These systems can do everything from just the abduction notification or the emergency to an outright town-wide notification plan. I'll give you an issue. Recreation Department, and this is, I would get these calls constantly since I've come here. Let's say the rink has a pipe break in there, and the rink is closed that evening. And Bill McKinney and his crew, Recreation, does a good job getting it out on the website that's closed, but you have to go onto the website and check to see that's on. One of these systems can do this, is if you sell, let's say, 200 skating passes, and Bill has it in his data. He can have those numbers set up as a group, such as you have on email, a group setting. And if the pipes are broken in there, Bill can send a message off to these 200 individuals saying the rink is closed this evening due to a malfunction. It'll be open next Wednesday. It relieves me from getting the calls from having all the residents showing up and packing all their hockey gear and showing up, driving down there, getting a parking space, running over a pothole, or, as you would say.
Freezing at Pee Wee hockey.
Freezing at Pee Wee hockey, and getting, why is the rink closed? In this case, they get notified on their phone, if they take the message, fine, that they don't have to bring all their gear down. We also can do snow emergencies, such as the case of the Waverly Square parking lot or the Cushing Square parking lot, is we can notify all the individuals who park there, there's a snow emergency, that you're not supposed to park there during the snow emergency, and you can do them as groupings. So I think it's very important to get communication out, because even though we put it on the website, it doesn't really help if you're not looking at the website constantly to find these notices.
Well, you know, between text messages and everything else, and you know, and I suppose even more, you know, starker emergencies like we had, we're at Northern Illinois University just this past week. I guess that went pretty well. Well, we got about 30 seconds left, and you know, we could sit here for hours and hours, and hopefully you can come on back, and hope you don't mind me grilling you, quote, grilling you, but it is a nice thing for you to come on down. Any parting words in the 20 seconds or so you got left?
I'll tell you, Steve, I've been here almost 3 years. It's a pleasure coming back to where I went to, you know, junior high, and I still call it the new high school. And my family appreciates here, and I've been very pleased with the way people have treated me and my family. And I hope this is the last stop on the journey.
There you go. Oh, look at that. The alarm, our very high-tech alarm. Thanks
Thank
a lot,
you, Steve.
Tom. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Well, there you have it. Another week here on Talk of the Town. And until next time, I'm Steve Rosales. Take care.